On the ACT Science, it is also important that you know the basics of physics. A large part of physics is the study of forces. A force is anything that results in a push or a pull from one object to another. For example, if you were to kick a ball, you would be exerting force on it because you would be pushing it forwards. Or in order to open a door, you need to exert a force on it by pulling it. Both of these examples are contact forces. You need to physically act on the force, so physically kick the ball or pull open the door in order to exert a force on it. Other types of forces are what we call non-contact forces, which exert a force on an object without coming in contact with it. One of the most common non-contact forces is gravity. Every object exerts gravity on another object. The larger an object is, the larger its gravitational force. For example, because of the gravity between the Earth and the sun pulls Earth towards it, which is why Earth rotates around the sun. Every day, we deal with the gravity that the Earth exerts on every other object. Think of when you throw a ball. You're exerting a force to push up the force, but the ball falls back down because of the force that Earth exerts on the ball toward the surface. So the only thing pulling the ball down back to Earth's surface is gravity. Another force that can act on an object is a pulley, which works against gravity. A pulley is a device with a wheel and a rope, and both of these can be tied to an object to raise it up. Think of a well. The easiest way to get the water is by putting up a bucket, tying it to a string, and using the rope to pull it up. There are two main types of energy: kinetic energy and potential energy. Kinetic energy is the energy of motion, while potential energy is the energy of rest. Think of a hill. The top of the hill is where you have the most potential energy. This is because at that height, there's more time for gravity to pull down the ball and have it roll down the hill. This potential energy is then converted into kinetic energy as it rolls down the hill. Since gravity pulls the object to the surface, once the ball reaches the surface, once this potential energy is converted into kinetic energy, it reaches the surface, then it has no potential energy at all. So here, as you see, the person holding the ball lets it have potential energy, and as soon as they release it, the ball falls down and turns into kinetic energy. Another type of force is the force that is created from a spring. Think of a slinky. If you don't do anything, the slinky just lies there. But if you press on the slinky, it compresses and gets smaller. And if you stretch it, it gets larger. By stretching the spring, you're basically giving the spring potential energy. So when you release the slinky, the energy is released. Another force that can oppose gravity is a force called buoyancy. Buoyancy is what allows objects to float in water. An object's ability to float, however, depends on its density, which, as we mentioned before, is density equals mass over volume. Now, if an object has a high density, then it sinks. And if an object has a lower density, it floats. So think about water. In order for this ball, for instance, to float, its density has to be less than water. But if it's higher than water, then it sinks.